Welcome, everyone, to week 5 of the Dolphins Make Me Cry podcast. Host Steve Giordano, honored as always to be here. And we finally get to celebrate the Dolphins' first victory of the season. But, boys and girls, at 1-3, after the 27-21 Monday night win against the Jets, we can't have nice things, Dolphin fans, and we lose Tyreek Hill for the season. So we get the high, and then bang, comes crashing down. What does that mean? What does that mean for the offense? What does that mean for the team? What does that mean for job security for many in the organization? We're going to break it all down because it means a lot. But breaking down the game a little bit, look, 27-21 win. I picked them to win 30-17, so I finally got a pick right, so that was nice. They did enough. They still, when you break it all down, they do things that a good team will not do. You also played a bad team. So again, a win's a win, and they needed it desperately, and you hope they can potentially build on it. But it was not all, sunshine and rainbows. Just if you even take out the Tyreek injury, the biggest issue on this team right now, and I've probably said it for 4 straight weeks, is the run defense is god-awful. They cannot stop anybody. Justin Fields played coming off the concussion, ran all over them. And literally defenses or offenses are looking at this defense and saying, okay, we see exactly what you are. We see the flaws, and we're just going to attack. And if you played a team that would have had a competent quarterback, and we'll use the New England game as an example. Drake May, who's coming into his own and, potentially could be a pretty solid starter. Jury's obviously out, second year in. He was able to make throws in that game in addition to the run game, which put them over the top, gave them the lead, obviously the play on special teams. But when you're playing the Jets, Justin Field, not a great passer, it became you're getting ran on and then he's not able to make throws. So when they went down, 10 plus, you just knew we were going to pull it out. Dolphins were going to pull it out just because of the sheer fact he was not going to be able to run his way to a double-digit score. But this team has got to solidify somehow the run defense, and it really begins and ends at the end of the day with getting more out of the rookies. I said it last week, Kenneth Grant, Biggers, Phillips, getting more out of Sealer, who needs to step up. He needs those guys to step up to help him, vice versa. More linebackers in the gaps. But, if you're playing the Dolphins, you're just literally running it down their throat. And that's a problem because you cannot – it neutralizes the pass rushers. So you're not getting a Chubb and Phillips. And, again, in fairness to them, they're coming back from the injury. So you feel now, October, 4 or 5 games in, kind of catch their stride a little bit. But they said this last week. They need to earn the right to be able to rush the passer. And right now, you don't even have enough down opportunity where you're doing that. If you go back to 2023, where they had basically a Dolphin record for sacks, they were getting leads, and then they were able to pin their ears back. But if you go back and look at the statistics from that year, their run defense was one of the best they've probably had in the last decade. And it's interesting with run defense with them. They've had some years it's been an abomination. Then they've had some years that it's actually been pretty stout. But the bottom line is they need to find a way to commit to it and get better at it. And they have to be stronger and better up front, and they have to fill gaps because it's the only way that this defense can do enough. And what's wild about all of it, and when it comes to predictions, is everybody was so worried about the secondary, and I still am, when you start playing a throw it all over the ballpark passer. You haven't really faced that yet. You did in Josh Allen, but Josh Allen was smart enough to realize he didn't need to do that, and then you didn't in anybody else. Not Fields, not Drake May. I guess if you want to say Daniel Jones, but that game was not about the pass. That game was about running them over, and it was the short pass game. So your secondary hasn't gotten exposed. It did a little bit in the Colts game, but overall, the secondary's done enough. And, play of the game early on, Jack Jones with the punch out as the Jets were about to score in the field, and lo and behold, it was rushing down the field and running all over the place. That was a big issue, and it has to be cleaned up. Now, to the offense. The offense did some good things, and Darren Waller, I mean, every Miami media member, myself, like, we've all been like scratching our heads. You signed this guy. Now, again, it was a low risk, high reward signing, so you can't go out and act like they went and, broke the bank for a free agent tight end and the guy didn't play for 4 weeks. So you do have to take it in context. But he came out, 2 touchdowns. He definitely looks the part. Obviously you got to see it over a consistent, period of time. He's a little older. Obviously he was out of football for a couple of years. But, I mean, look, player of the game, got to give him credit. Got to give Tua a lot of credit in that game. No turnovers, played efficiently. What I liked from the offense was they were protecting him from that weak right side of the line, a lot of rollouts, kind of moving that pocket, which is something that they used to do with Tannehill a lot. They haven't done it a ton with Tua. There's been spots here and there throughout his career. They're going to have to get to that. But overall, had 122 yards rushing. You had more Ollie Gordon. Obviously, A-Chain kind of did his thing, had about 100. So some good things offensively. And here's where we go down the negative route. Tyreek was having a game, 6 catches, had like 67 yards. And then right after halftime, they get the fumble recovery. And what happens? He, on a crosser, he gets tackled out of bounds, and he's got now a dislocated knee, torn ACL. He's already had surgery. And you just say, like, wow, there's so many layers to this injury. Number one, there's the now, right? Even though he didn't have a great year last year, he was beat up, the hand injury, all the drama around him, Tua being out, he had, just under 1,000 yards last year. And then this year, was kind of somewhat picking it up, in the Bills game with more receptions, not a ton of yards. When you do not have him in the lineup, and we've been kind of spoiled in having essentially a generational talent player for the last, 3.25 years, that really does a number on the offense, because the threat of Tyreek, even if he's not in stride and doing the things he's doing, the threat and the pressure that it puts on the defense, it opens things up. So now essentially you go to running a different offense, and not even, I shouldn't say a different offense, it's the same offense, but it's going to be a differently distributed offense. And you really wonder, what will the creativity that McDaniel has come into play here? What I hope it is, and what I honestly think it will be, is this will become a run first or a more balanced offense, where you will look to run the ball to set up the pass, to set up the play action, and then have distribution. And then it becomes, to me, I don't want to say about Jalen Waddle, because Jalen Waddle is not Tyreek Hill. He never will be. It's not the skill set. It's not him. And the jury's out, to me, if Jalen Waddle can be a number one. Can he be a number one? Skill set? Yes. Jalen Waddle, though, I feel, since Tyreek has been here, and he's had some good games and moments, and he's been productive, and I don't want to be down on him, but he's taken a back seat, right? And rightfully so. And I feel like he's kind of been hidden in the offense, and there hasn't been a crazy amount of, accountability might be the wrong word, but we'll use accountability. Has there been a lot for him, like, on his plate? It's been the Tyreek show for specifically 2023. Waddle, he had an interesting start. He comes in the league. He has a great year from a reception perspective, but it was basically, they took a B wideout and they made him essentially a possession guy with a lot of, he was very Jarvis Landry-esque in his first year. Then they kind of opened it up. He obviously has the speed. He's had some injury issues. He's not the biggest guy. But the question here is, can he step up? Now, when I say can he step up, I'm not saying can he go be Tyreek Hill. But can he be a one? And can he be the threat? Not that Tyreek was, but can he be enough of a threat that it opens things up for others? And then you then pass that on Malik Washington doing more. Are we continue to get stuff out of Waller? Is the run game going to give you 120 on the ground? Are you going to use A-Chain more as a pass catcher and then more Ollie Gordon and Jalen Wright? That's what I'd personally like to see. I'm not saying you're not going to run A-Chain. You are. But if you got Jalen Wright involved, if you got Ollie Gordon involved, and then it's a little less A-Chain running, it's a little more A-Chain catching, you got Waller stretching the field, and then you get that other guy, Malik Washington, D. Eskridge, Nick Westbrook-Akine, big body. The offense here, it's going to evolve because it has to without Tyreek. And it's going to be very interesting to see. But I'm going to, as much as I don't believe in McDaniel on the run game, I'm going to give him a benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to say he's going to lean on that as the catalyst for what will happen with the tight end position and the other wideouts to continue to be an open offense and be able to produce, let's call it that 28 point a game sweet spot that they had in 2023. I think they could get there. The fear, though, is before Tyreek, they did not have, and we're even going before Tua, you did not have dynamic offense. Now, Tyreek is a dynamic player, and he's not the greatest wide receiver in the league, but he is the most unique wide receiver in the league for what he can do in the threat, the after the catch, the speed, the afterburners. So now what does that all look like? Do I think there'll be a dip? Yes. Do I think they can be about even, maybe a little slightly off? Yes. Do I think it's going to be necessarily the first game? No. However, and we'll get into this more in the prediction, I do think this game and this opponent can lean itself more to this offense looking, maybe better or more high-powered or quicker to that than it probably could or should be. Now, the other side of Tyreek. When you're looking at this year, everybody knows he was not going to be a Dolphin next year on the current contract he had because of the way it was structured and the backloading and the $53 million. They were never going to pay him $53 million for the headache that he is and for the age that he would be, and obviously what that cap hit would mean him to. I mean, they'd be, practically 50% of your cap. So you have that scenario. So as this year progressed, it became, okay, if you're continuing to go down this road of losing and you're out of it, would you trade him? Then everything comes in with the domestic violence. Then is a team going to trade with that? Is a team going to lowball the Dolphins? Do the Chiefs want him because they need a wideout? So all of those things that were on the table are clearly off the table now. And when you look big picture, and this is where, you can say luck, you can say bad timing. When you look back or forward, I should say, in a couple years, you might be like, damn, we could have gotten a pick. Now, again, with everything swirling, you were not getting anything, lower than probably a 5. But you never know. That could have been a foundational player or a solid player if you kept going down the road and traded him, which obviously now we're never going to know. Then the next question is 2 questions. One, obviously, I think Tyreek Hill has probably played his last play as a Dolphin. The only shot would really be 2 shots, and it would be one if McDaniel has a good enough year to save his job, which there's no way you're convincing me that he is. And 2, if that happened and he's healthy, he then comes back on a completely restructured lowball deal. Very highly, highly unlikely. On mostly probably the first thing, and then even the second thing is probably just up there as well. So that is an end of an era. And as we look back on the trade that they made when McDaniel got here, and it was a spur of the moment thing. It wasn't in the plan, and then bang, all of a sudden you make this blockbuster trade for this, basically, practically Hall of Fame player with baggage but dynamic. That's probably the most dynamic of offense you're going to see for a very long time. You had the Marino years, Clayton Duper, some others, and then you had this Tyreek Hill era, and that's the end of an era. And I mean, look, it was crazy fun to have that type of a threat. It's a shame when you look back on it and you're always going to go back to the fact that you blew the division, and that, the ceiling was the 11-win season. But, look, his knuckleheadness, he wasn't enough of an a-hole to really be a major issue, missing games, things like that. He played crazy hard. He made crazy plays. It's a shame. It's very hard sometimes to quantify the person and the player and all the shit that swirls around. But I mean, it's an end of an era. And what my fear is after that Marino era, you've had lackluster quarterback play for decades, and then you had you combined it with the fact that you didn't have great wideouts. You had some good ones here and there. Chris Chambers, obviously McDuffie, he was, towards the tail end of Marino. You had some guys here and there. Landry, obviously, possession guy. I mean, Parker had his moments. But you never had that guy. You never had Tyreek. And then you obviously combining it with the lack of a quarterback, you've always had this kind of like, grinded out offense, barring, here and there, some games and some years. And now that just falls by the wayside, and it'll probably never be back. And then the other side of it is this a big enough injury that maybe he doesn't play again? Possible. I'd probably lean towards he does, because I think he's the type of player that wants to, and I think he'll put in the work. He's a worker, and I don't think he wants to go out like that. But you can pretty much take it to the bank, be his last game as a Dolphin. And it's said, whether you like the guy or don't like the guy. I mean, look, for the excitement that it brought and the opportunity that was there to be a winning playoff team, win playoff games, it was worth doing. And I got to give him credit for doing it. You had to take the chance, because everybody forgets, and we're going to talk about this, that offseason when they signed Tyreek in 2022, Cedric Wilson was their number one, quote-unquote, free agent signing at wideout. And then he basically just got thrown to the trash heap when you had the opportunity to get Tyreek Hill. So you would have been going into that season with Cedric Wilson as a number one. And you sure as hell would not be getting what you got with Tyreek Hill. And that brings us full circle. Who did they sign this week? Cedric Wilson, who had been cut from the Saints practice squad. And in typical Dolphin fashion, he's hurt, and he just had a knee surgery. Great. They do realize that there's only 17 games, right? And if you're signing a guy, you might want him to be able to play. Now, again, he's on the practice squad. The second part of the problem that you think with this move is they love to sign guys and only sign guys that, quote-unquote, know the offense. It's like there's 10 guys in the league that know the offense, and we have to sign them. We cut them, we sign them. We cut them, we sign them. We don't sign anybody else that has any talent, because we know our offense is so complicated and they need 100 years to learn it. So does it matter that he's here? Whatever, fine. I wouldn't even have as much of an issue with it if he wasn't hurt. So we're going to see where that goes. But yes, Cedric Wilson back. And, look, this is going to really test McDaniel and his coaching ability, and can he make the offense move without Tyreek and the threat of Tyreek? Can he do that? I'm going to give him credit. I mean, look, I think he's a good head coach, and the X's and O's and timeouts and game management, blah, 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 blah. No, but I'm going to be fair. He's had 2 good games, 2 good game plans locked in. I definitely, probably the 2 best games, if you just looked at overall game plan of the full game, it's right up there. The Charger game comes to mind. And then you obviously had some of the games where you had just a crazy offensive production, right? So I'm going to give him some credit on some of those in 2023. But 2 of the best games he's coached. I'm going to also give them credit. This was a game where they did not have the crazy stupidity. Penalties, had no turnovers. The Jets did that for you. So you finally found somebody who could play dumb and you could play smart. And lo and behold, you won, 27-21. So it's nice. Now can we build on it? Now, that brings us to the opponent this week, Carolina. Excited to be there in Charlotte. Panthers are, a very, interesting kind of a team. If you look at them, kind of dysfunctional owner, not very good, but a little Jekyll and Hyde. And some of the league is that right now. They come out a couple weeks ago at home where they played mud and they beat the Falcons, who are not great, but decent, 30-0. And then last week go up to New England, lose 42-13. Who are they? Their starting running back, Hubbard, is out. That helps. Robert Hunt, guard, who I wish we could have signed, but he just got a ridiculous contract from them last season. He's out, so that helps you. Their D-line, like ours, cannot produce sacks and not very good, and they're not good against the run. They have some players in the secondary. Bryce Young, has been a project, and it's kind of weird with him. They gave up on him, benched him last year, went to Andy Dalton, went back to him. He turned it on a little bit more. Kid looks like he has some ability. He obviously needs a better team around him. Do I fear him? No. We played him down here 2 years ago. They came out 14-0. We blew him out after that. But he definitely, those first couple of drives, he definitely was, he put the Dolphins on notice. So I think he's one of those guys that has some ability, and you got to be careful. But if you can scheme him right, you can game plan him right, you take away the run, he's not going to be able to kind of live up to the billing. So I think that's a huge factor when the Dolphins are going into this game and looking at how they're going to attack them defensively. And I really feel this could be the game that the defense stops the run and then also gets to the pass rush and gets the pass rush going. In that being said, the other thing about this game, I just have this feeling of typical Dolphins, not to spoil who I'm picking. They love to do this. They go on these down streaks, and then all of a sudden they bounce back and they get you all excited, and they'll get to 2-3, and then you get to the Chargers, and maybe even you can squeak that one out and get yourself to 3-3, and they'll get the hopes up. They're really good at that. So in this spot, in just knowing this team, and also knowing that you're a more talented team than they are, not by leaps and bounds, but you definitely are in certain spots. Quarterback plays definitely, I would assume, going to be better with Tua. I would definitely take Tua over him. You're healthier. They have a lot of injuries. Obviously losing your starting running back. And it's interesting to say it when you're going into it without Tyreek. From an offensive perspective, I think you're going to see the wrinkles in this game, and I think you're going to see some explosion in the offense. It's just going to be a different looking explosiveness than it is with Tyreek, because now you lose, obviously, the speed, comeback ability, cheat motion, which they don't really have much on the road anyway because of the noise. But, kind of him moving, the movement. I think you're going to see the evolution of the offense, and I think it will show up. I think it'll struggle in the long run, but I do think it'll show up in this game, and you're going to see it and feel it. And I think you're going to walk away from this game and say, man, all right, well, they're not back yet, but they're 2-3. And all right, you got the Chargers at home, West Coast team coming east. They're beat up. They got beat up by the Giants last week, who are not a very good team either. And again, a lot of the league right now, and whether you want to say it's good for us or bad for us, is not great. I mean, the worry to me is that, the Bills are going to run away with it. But, Ravens, ton of injuries that they're dealing with at 1-3. The Chiefs injuries, they bounced back last week. And then the Bills are obviously 4-0. And even they did not look great against the Saints, and their run defense is not good. But, the bottom line is their schedule is very, easy. I get it. We play the same division. But their schedule, at 4-0, they have an opportunity to do some steamrolling and really build themselves up, which you fear. And then obviously in the NFC, the Eagles, they are who they are. But there's a lot of uncertainty. A lot of it to me in the league has to do with injuries. And obviously who's in, who's out. Like if you're the Ravens, for instance, they lose their best defensive player. Jackson's going to be out 2 to 3 weeks. Henry's had his issues fumbling. Do I think a team like the Ravens will figure it out, win the division, and get strong when it matters? I do. But bottom line is, it's kind of ripe for the picking if you can do some stuff. And I mean, our schedule is not crazy. Our biggest issue is not our schedule. It's us. You have Panthers, home at the Chargers, which is definitely the toughest of the next 5. In Cleveland, okay, there could be worse spots. They're not world beaters. Their offense is terrible, good defense. And then Atlanta, decent team, inconsistent, again, on the road, back-to-back on the road. But you could see it. You could see them getting themselves back in it, getting 3-4, 4-3, 3-5. You could see it. But we'll see, and it all starts on Sunday in Carolina. We are going to check the most updated line and see where we're at. And I'm excited to be there, and excited to see a new stadium that I have not been to, and excited for hopefully a Dolphin win and maybe some momentum. I'm kind of sick of the doom and gloom. Maybe we can have a game and get some momentum and not have 900 injuries in it and the best player on the team going out. So we'll see. That being said, Steve Gio's Week 5 Miami Dolphin pick in the league where they play for pay. Dolphins, Panthers, Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina. The Dolphins are favored by 1.5. Over-under is 44.5. As I predicted and said earlier, I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to pick the same score I picked last week for Dolphins-Jets. I am going 30-17 Dolphins. I think the Dolphins will come out. I think you're going to get the healthy dose of the run game. I think you're going to get a Darren Waller experience, 5 to 6 catches. I think you're going to get space. I think you're going to see a balanced offense, and you're going to see big plays in the new form of what big plays will look like without Tyreek Hill. Defensively, I think they'll get a couple turnovers. I think they'll get to Young. I think they will actually, I don't want to say stop the run, but I think it will be better. It won't be giving up, 197 yards on the ground. I think they'll give up some, but it'll be contained. And I think the Panthers will make some mistakes, turn the ball over a little bit, and ultimately I think we will play what we will probably look back on and say, man, that was probably the high mark of the Dolphins season. Hopefully it's not the high mark, but hopefully it's a good building block game where they can essentially get themselves back to 2-3, coming home next week against the Chargers. Excited to see it live. Let's go, Fins. Let's get to 2-3. We will see you in Charlotte, and then we will see you next week for Dolphins Chargers at Hard Rock Stadium. Go, Fins.